welcome to today's video. Those of you that are new to my channel, hi, my name is Maria, and today I'm going to be trying out the brand new makeup launch from Valentino. I picked up a few items from Selfridges, enough to do a full face of makeup. I didn't pick up everything they had. It is fairly pricey makeup, which would be expected with a luxury brand, but the items I did pick up is the Very Valentino foundation. I also picked up the two blushes, well, they're actually called the EyesCheek blushes, so they can be used as an eyeshadow and a blush as well. I also got the Colour Flip, which has quite a few different eyeshadows in it. There's some bases, a metallic, I think there's a matte and shimmer, and there's also a couple of topper shades as well. I also picked up their magnificent mascara. It says that it is an all-day wear, long-lasting one, so I'll be interested to see what that's like. And I also picked up two lipsticks. Now they have them in the formula both matte and satin. I prefer satin lipsticks, so those are the two colours I picked up. And I didn't get them in the red shade because I don't really wear a lot of red. So when I buy, especially if I'm trying out a new brand, I like to get colours more that I will use or reach for each day. But I'm happy with the amount of items that I picked up. I think it's enough to give you an idea of what a full face of this Valentino will look like. Now, I haven't seen any videos on this yet. I have seen one Instagram post that had a few sort of mixed thoughts, mainly to do with what I saw was on the packaging. So I'll go through each item as I'm putting them on. So let's start off with the foundation. I already have a primer on today. I put on it's a new one to me, but I'm really loving it. It's the Chanel Multi-Use Illuminating Base. And the foundation comes in this packaging. All the packaging for each item is very similar. I'll try and turn it so the light's not reflecting too much. So the packaging has gold on each side and the red. It gives the shade name on the top of the packaging, and I got MN1. I think this foundation is probably going to be a couple of shades too light for me. It is difficult buying online, but I thought it was better to get a lighter foundation. I can always bronze it up. I just didn't want to get one that was too dark. So let's have a look at this bottle inside. It feels heavy. So the bottle itself is glass with a plastic lid, has the Valentino logo at the front with the red on the lid. It is a pull-off cap and is a pump dispenser. Now this comes in 25 mils. Normally foundation, I think bar one that I own, normally foundation has about 30 mils. This also says it is SPF 25, which is fine, but I don't rely on SPFs in foundation. Before I put my primer on, I've already done my skincare and have my usual sunscreen on as well. So for those of you that haven't watched any of my other videos, I have mature skin and it is very oily. It is winter here now in New Zealand, so my skin isn't as oily, but oils can still break through throughout the day. So in front of me, I have my iPad, and I've opened up the Valentino Beauty website so I can have a look and see how they describe this foundation. And they say it is very light, a very lasting foundation with 24-hour wear and breathable perfection. That it's very light yet very lasting. Very Valentino pushes the boundaries of foundation. The 24-hour wear semi-matte formula balances coverage with a light breathable texture, and it says you can find Very Valentino within 40 shades. I decided to pick up the foundation when I read that it was semi-matte. I'm hoping that it will go really well with my oily skin. This also has skincare ingredient glycerin in it, so that's probably what's going to give it that semi-matte finish. It shouldn't look flat or feel dry when I put it on. I imagine it's still going to feel probably like a very light moisturizer in texture that I'll probably need to powder down. The shelf life of this foundation, I'm just having a look at the bottom of the box, and it's on the side, and it says from opening it has a 12-month shelf life from the day you open it, and all of these products are made in France. So I'm going to put this foundation on using my BK Beauty 101 foundation brush. I also use a beauty blenders as well sometimes, but I am reaching for the brush a bit more these days. I do love the finish that it gives. So I'm going to put one pump on my hand. Now it does have a little diagram on the outside of the packaging. I'll try and hold it so that it doesn't reflect too much, and it's on there. And it has a picture, and what it's telling you to do is to shake the bottle before use. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've given the bottle a shake. I'm just going to hold it a bit closer. I forgot to do that so you can have a good look at it. So I'm going to start off and just put one pump of this on the back of my hand and see how this goes. So looking at the website here, it doesn't really say what type of coverage it is. It just says that it's buildable. So let's start putting this on. The texture isn't really thick, but it isn't overly runny either. So I can see that this foundation is a little bit too light, but that's fine because I'll just bronze it up. It's much better dealing with a foundation that's a bit too light than the one that's too dark. This does have a fragrance. It's not overpowering, and it is very pleasant. But if you don't like fragrance in foundations, then you won't like this. So that's with one side of my face done. I've only used about half of the one pump that I put on my hand, so I think one pump is going to be enough. I quite like the finish of this. It feels very light. It doesn't feel heavy in any way, and it is, I would say, a strong medium leaning towards a full coverage foundation. You could probably get a lighter coverage with a beauty blender, and it does blend out really well. So I think you could share this out, and then I think you could also build it up if you wanted to lean towards that more full coverage as well. But at this stage, it's looking quite nice, and the shade really isn't too bad. It may be one shade out. For my skin type, they did have quite a big range, and that made it a bit difficult to try and find the exact colour, but this isn't too bad. So I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to use the rest of the foundation that I have on my hand. All the foundation is on now, and it is giving, I would say it's a very strong, close to a full coverage. I have a sunspot here, and I have some here and up there, and there's really no foundation that I've tried out anyway that absolutely covers that, but it's definitely covered the redness. I have broken capillaries on these parts here, and it has covered that. It feels really lovely on the skin. It isn't completely matted down, so it's definitely living up to its semi-matte claims of the finish that it has. It is one maybe I could leave without powdering. I think if it was the summer, I'd definitely powder it down. I am going to put a bit of powder on this today. I'm not putting any under my eyes. I really do that with foundation, and I really don't want to with the semi-matte one. It just emphasizes all the lines I have under my eyes once that dries down, and I never put foundation on my eyelid area anyway. It isn't at this stage settling into any lines or wrinkles that I have. It just feels really, really nice. So the next Valentino product that I'm going to be using is the eyeshadows. So now off camera, I'm going to put my corrector and concealer on, my eyeshadow primer, and I'll do my eyebrows. I'm also going to put some powder just very lightly on my face and then put on some bronzer. But I think when it comes to powdering this foundation, I will put that on camera so you can have a look and I can sort of describe to you how that feels once I've put the powder on. The foundation feels exactly the same as when I first put it on, so it hasn't dried down any further. It just feels really, really lovely. I am going to do because even though it's winter, the oils in my skin still tend to try and break throughout the day. So I'm going to do a really light dusting of powder. I'm using the Chanel Natural Finish loose powder. This is the translucent one, and I'm going to put it on with the BK Beauty 102 brush. Now in the summer, I tend to use a Sonia G brush to put powder on and buff it in more. But when I only want a light dusting, this is the brush that I reach for. It's just super fluffy and just doesn't pick up too much product. And just putting that light dusting on, it has made it feel like it's dried down a little bit, but because I didn't use a huge amount of powder, it doesn't make it feel real powdery and super matte either. It just feels really, really nice. I'm still liking the look of this foundation at the moment. It's not settling into my lines or wrinkles, hasn't moved in any way, and that scent that I could smell when I first applied the foundation, can't smell that anymore. And as I said, it wasn't overpowering to begin with anyway, but at the moment I think it looks really, really nice. I did forget to say that on the website when they described this foundation, actually there's quite a few paragraphs that describe the foundation and I don't want to get into all that, but one of them it's supposed to give, and it's inspired by the couture gowns of Valentino, and it's supposed to give that light, or this foundation, that light floating sensation of fabric over your skin. Well, that's all very dramatic and sounds nice, and I don't know whether it does that, but it certainly feels nice and it doesn't feel heavy. It does feel lightweight. So let's get into the eyeshadows that I picked up. So these are the eyeshadows, and again I'll just try to turn it so there's not too much reflection. It is called the Colour Flip, and it's a multi-look eye palette. Says it has 2 bases, 4 colours and 2 top shimmers, and this is called When in Roma. And on their website, on the actual Valentino Beauty website, I couldn't find this product, so I couldn't get a more in-depth description of what they say it should be, but it is on the Selfridges website. But again, that doesn't really give a very in-depth description about it either. So inside the box, it comes with this packaging, some foam to protect it. And this has a 24-month shelf life from date of opening. And here is the packaging. And like I said, although I haven't seen any in-depth videos on this brand yet, there was one Instagram post that I saw, and they noted the packaging they thought looked cheap and was lightweight. Well, you know, it's plastic. And I was having to think about that. I mean, all the eyeshadow palettes that I have and the blush ones, they're plastic as well. Maybe the look of it, some people may think, because of the bright red and the gold, but the bright red is Valentino's signature colour. Who remembers years and years ago that picture of, it was Elizabeth Hurley in that bright red dress, and I think she was with Valentino. If I can find that picture, I will put it up when I edit this video. So the weight of this palette, well, it doesn't feel too bad. I've just grabbed a couple of different quads. I mean, what this may be lacking is some extra weight in it. I've got a Pat McGrath quad in front of me that is definitely heavier than this, slightly heavier in the hand. And I've also got a Dior Quint in front of me as well, and the Dior Quint feels actually a bit lighter than this Valentino eyeshadow. So again, it has the Valentino logo at the front, has the gold around the edge and on the back, and on the back it gives the description of each shade in the palette. So inside it has a mirror, and it also has plastic covering inside that I haven't taken off yet. Also has a couple of small brushes. I'm just going to tip those out because they're likely to fall out when I'm showing you this palette. And up top are the 4 eyeshadows, and then underneath they call the shadows, there's 2 bases and 2 topper shades. So these are the 4 shades, and then you open up on the side, and here are the 2 base shades, and up top are the 2 topper shades. So I'm going to swatch these shadows on my arm. I'm going to start with the top palette first, and I'm going to work from left to right, top to bottom. So I've turned my ring light down low so you get a really good look at these shadows. Now when I swatched them on, they felt really good going on my arm, very smooth and really pigmented. So again, starting from the top, working left to right and then top to bottom. We've got the first shade, which is called Rosso, and this is a satin. The next one is called Bronze, and this is a shimmer. And this shade here is called Palazzo, and that is a matte. The matte felt really good going on, didn't feel, well to me, dry in any way. And then the last shade is called Dusk, and that is a satin. And the palette underneath, this shade is called Gold, and this is described as a top shimmer. These swatches that I did on my arm were done with one swipe, so they're pretty impressive at this stage. This next one is called Pearl, and again this is described as a top shimmer. These 2 are called bases for your top shimmers, and this one is called Perdure, and then the last one is called Nero, which is black. So let's put some of these shadows on. As I said, I'm going to just use the shadows in the top part of this palette, and I'm going to start off with the matte shade, and that is the colour Palazzo, and I'm going to use my Rephr number 15 brush. There is quite a bit of pickup. I don't have to touch very much into the shadow at all. Doesn't appear to be much kick up. A tiny bit, but nothing significant. Well, this shadow blended really, really lovely. That is the matte one, and you get a lot of payoff. I only had to, for each eye, just tap once very lightly into the eyeshadow palette. So now I'm going to go into the shade Dusk. That is a satin, and I'm going to use the Rephr number 14 brush, and I'm going to put that a little bit more through the crease here to give a bit more depth and on the outer third of my eye. Then using the same shade, I'm going to take my Rephr number 3 brush and just go under my lower lash line. And that colour is going to be dark enough for me as well to do my upper lash line and give a bit of definition. But before I do that, I want to use this pink shade that they call Rosso, and this is a satin. And I just want to put some on the inner part of my eyelid here. And I'm using the Sonia G Builder 3 brush for this, at this stage anyway. See how that applies. So I was going to use this bronze shade, but I think that's going to be too deep. I wanted something just to show maybe if it highlights on the inner corner of my eye, but I just don't think that's the right colour. And underneath they do have this pearl, so I might try that. When you rub your finger on this one, even though it is super pigmented, it feels, it doesn't feel on the, when I put it on my skin, but when you're on the palette, it feels slightly grainy, but it sort of doesn't feel like that once I've put it on my finger. But I'm going to give this one a try, and as I said, put that in the inner corner. So that pearl shade is really, really pretty. It does have, it's got a little bit of that glitter in it, so there is a tiny bit of fallout. You probably can't see, but there's I only can see 1 or 2 bits of fallout. It's not too bad, and it didn't feel grainy or anything when I applied it to my inner eye. It just felt really, really smooth. It's just initially when you rub it on the palette, but then as I said, once it's on your skin, it feels fine. But it looks really, really good. So I want to go back into this dusk shade, and I'm going to use my Hourglass number 10 brush just to define my upper lash line. So that dusk shade worked really well to define my upper lash line as well. I didn't get, even though I do tap off a brush when I do my upper lash line, sometimes powder can still get into your eye. I didn't find that with this at all. I have really sensitive eyes, so if a powder does that, it's really no good for me. But I didn't have any issue with that at all. So now let's get into the mascara. This is called the Magnificent Striking Volume Mascara with All Day Wear. This says that it is inspired by Valentino's mastery of volumes. The Magnificent Mascara enhances your lashes with up to 15 times more volume that lasts all day long. Its dark pigments provide an ultra black result for an intensified eye look in a wink. And it also says that the brush on this is a soft type of brush. It has 10 mils of product and a 6-month shelf life from date of opening. This is the packaging. This isn't really a bright red. This sort of is more on the pink type of colour, but again has the Valentino logo at the front and has the colour of the mascara and other tiny information that I can't read on the bottom, probably how much is in the product and the shelf life on it as well. So here is the brush, just a fairly standard size, not too big, which I like. I tend to be a bit clumsy sometimes with my mascara, so the size brush is good. What I really look for is a mascara that gives volume. A bit of length would be good as well. I want to be able to layer it. I don't want it to clump, and I don't want it to transfer throughout the day. So we'll put some of this on. I've already curled my eyelashes. So this mascara has a nice formula. I was able to layer it a couple of times like I like to do with mascaras. Is it up to 15. They have put that caveat on it of up to, but no, it doesn't add volume of 15 times more, but it has added volume. It didn't clump when I put it on, so now I'll just have to see how it wears throughout the day, and I'll just be watching for that it doesn't transfer. But either I will put some writing when I'm editing this video, or I will pin a comment to this video once I've uploaded it, and I'll let you know how the different products wore, like the foundation and the eyeshadow and the mascara as well. So now let's get into the two blushes that I purchased. So I got two of the blushes, and these are called the EyesCheek. These are described as a creamy powder, and you can use them either as an eyeshadow or a blush. Today I'm going to use one of these colors as a blush, and they also say that they are really good for, which I have never done yet, but I've seen amazing photos of it, and that's the draping technique, where it's just all that one color eyeshadow and then keeps following down and drapes down to a beautiful blush shade and look on the cheek as well. But as I said, I haven't tried the draping technique, but they do say that these are great for doing that sort of style. So the two shades that I picked up was number 4 Sweet Rebel, and the second one is in 03 Rosa Emozione. I think that's how you pronounce it. Hopefully you do. So this has 3.6 grams of product, and these have a shelf life of 24 months. So we'll take a look inside. So just like with the other packaging, got the Valentino red with the Valentino logo. It has this area here that contains a brush inside. This is the shade Rosa Emozione. I hope I'm saying that right. And it has a little brush inside there. And I'll just try and get that out. It's a bit difficult to get out actually, but it has got plastic wrapping on at the moment. This is the brush, and I really, how does it, oh, the brush feels very, very nice, really soft, but maybe for the eyeshadow part, but a little brush like this, I don't think you'd be using for the blush part. It would take forever. I'm actually just going to put it, I've taken the plastic off, and I'm just going to put it back in that little compartment and just see how easy it is to get out. If you give it a shake, it comes out. Don't know how really practical that is, but anyway, this is the shade. And I will swatch some of that on the back of my hand. And actually I'll open the other one too, the Sweet Rebel, and I'll swatch this one on the back of my hand as well, so I can show it to you together. And again, it has that brush inside, and I will show you the shade close up of this one. So this one is Rosa Emozione, and this one here is Sweet Rebel, and they both have a pearlescent finish, and all of the blushes have that, so they're not completely matte. They don't appear to be overly shiny either. They are very pigmented, and they feel very smooth. So I'm going to use the Sweet Rebel shade, and I'm going to use the BK Beauty 104 brush to apply that. Well, that's a really nice shade, and they're not as shimmery as I thought they were going to be, and I'm really pleased about that. I tend not to like blushes that are too shimmery, only because I find for my skin that it can emphasize any texture or these lines that start to come out here. It can emphasize that, but this hasn't done that. It really just is a type of satin finish, but really subtle. These blended really, really beautifully. I had no issues with that, and they don't go, even though they are well pigmented, they don't go on in a real bold splash of colour and that you've got to quickly try and diffuse somehow. They just go on really, really subtly. And then I also built this up. I did a couple of taps in the shade for each side, and they build really, really beautifully. So I think that they look really, really pretty, and I'll be interested to see what the other shade looks like as well. So finally, let's get into the lipsticks. Now, they have a huge lipstick range, and they have them both in mattes and satins. I picked up 2 satin lipsticks. I prefer satin lipsticks, although that's probably because maybe I need to explore matte lipsticks more and ones that aren't too drying. But the shades that I picked up were Ambitious Peach and Hot Beige. These are described as a luminous satin. They have 3.6 grams of product, and the shelf life is 24 months from date of opening. So this is the lipstick packaging. It has the red on the front and on each side as well. Gold on the top and the gold on the back as well. And you just pull off the top, and here is the bullet. It has the Valentino logo stamped in one side of the bullet. And on the bottom of the packaging, it doesn't have the shade of the lipstick. And the reason for that is because these are refillable. So what you do is pull it out, and then if you want to try a different shade, then you just have to buy the refill in the shade you want, and then it just clicks back in. But even though it doesn't have the shade name on the bottom of the packaging, it does have, and you won't be able to see it, but in very small writing, it does have the shade number on the side of each case, the part that you pull out, so you will know what shade it is if you want to reference it back at some stage. So I'll swatch both of these lipsticks on the back of my hand. So this one is Ambitious Peach, and this one is Hot Beige. So the shade I'm going to put on today is the Ambitious Peach shade. That feels really, really nice going on. It's super creamy. It has quite a lot of opacity, so you can't see through to my lips. And this is a really gorgeous shade. Goes really beautifully with the blush and the eyeshadow that I'm wearing today as well. I'm sure the other colour looks really good too. Again, I don't know how long this will last. I find satin lipsticks don't last a terribly long time, and I have to top them up throughout the day, and that doesn't really bother me. But again, I'll give an update once I've uploaded this video and put it to a pinned comment. But it feels really, really lovely on the lips. It's a satin, so it's in no way drying at all, and feels quite hydrating too. Just feels really, really lovely, but not too slippery, and doesn't feel tacky in any way either. So this is all the finished look, and I've actually been wearing this makeup for about, I'm just looking at the time now, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I started doing this video at about 8 o'clock this morning. So the time I put on 9, that's 5, between 7 and 8 hours. I sort of ran out of time because I went and did a live with someone else on YouTube today, but it's given me a good chance to have a really good think about this makeup and how it's wearing. So we'll begin with the foundation. I really like the foundation. It's lasted really, really well. It doesn't transfer or move. It hasn't settled into any of my major lines or wrinkles. I think it looks really, really pretty. It has a great coverage. I didn't add any extra concealer or anything over my sunspots. So I think overall I really like this foundation. I don't know whether it will suit dry skin, normal to oily skin like mine. I think it's really, really good. And the shade ended up being okay because I put a bit of bronzer on and warmed up. It wasn't really out that much anyway to begin with. So next is the eyeshadows. There is a bit of fading with the colour and possibly there is a bit of creasing here. You know, there's other eyeshadows, luxury eyeshadows that I have that don't do that. It's not even summer here, it's winter. So it's not like it's humid. That can cause creasing, especially when you have oily skin. I mean, overall the eyeshadow has lasted really well. But I just think there is a little bit of fading. I think this dark corner, I think the shade was Dusk. I think that it was the satin shade that I put on the outer corner here. I definitely think that has faded a bit and possibly some up here as well. The topper shades underneath, well, they call them toppers, but I mean, I've had a really good look at them again. They are pressed glitters, and I don't know what they thought they would be. They're not what I would call a topper shade to put on top of that black eyeshadow. It's not really gonna work like that, and I don't really use pressed glitters too much. I mean, this one, the pearl one that I put in the corners of my eye here, they've lasted quite well. I can still see them giving that highlighted effect there, and the glitter hasn't caused issues by going into my eyes and causing irritation or anything like that. So overall, I think the eyeshadows are okay. I wouldn't mind trying the black shade out to see how that blends, because black shades can be notorious for not blending very well. And saying that, the other day I tried one of the Dior monos and that black shade was stunning and I absolutely loved it. So next is the mascara. The mascara is good. The mascara has not transferred either to my upper eye area up here or down below. It has stayed on really well, and it looks like really I've only just applied it. So I really, really like the mascara. I think it is what they say, although it's not up to 15 times more volume on my lashes, but it certainly does give them volume, separates the lashes really well, and overall they just look really nice. So I'm really happy with the mascara. So next is the blushes, and they still look really, really nice. There may be a little bit of fading, but there's no patchiness really. This is my bronzer here. So they've stayed on quite well and they haven't slid round. Sometimes if a blush is really no good, it can start to emphasize some texture on your skin, and they're not doing that. So I really like them. I think they're really pretty, and I love the fact that despite how they initially looked when I swatched them, they are actually quite subtle and they are buildable. So last is the lipstick. I don't like the lipstick. I only reapplied this because I was coming back on camera again 5-10 minutes ago, and already you probably can't see, but it just looks really, really patchy and doesn't give that opacity that I'm looking for in a lipstick. So these lipsticks are a fail for me. I would expect something to last. Lipsticks don't generally last that long on me anyway for some reason. But I do expect an hour or two before I have to touch up. But when you put them on for, well, put them on 5, say 10-15 minutes ago, 15 minutes at the most, and already they're starting to patch, you know, that's not a good lipstick. So for me, these lipsticks are a fail, unfortunately. So overall, there were some hits and there were some misses with this brand. I do really like the foundation, I like the mascara, I like the blush. The eyeshadows are okay. I'm going to play around with them a little bit more. I don't like the lipstick. That is a definite fail for me. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next time. Bye.